Hello guys, welcome back to the channel for the second part of the top 26 shows sent home video. That's the title now. Part 2 this is. So this is 13 to 1 countdown to the best shows I watched on VHS back in the day, home video. And yeah, I've just done part 1, so let's get down to part 2. So top 13, so this is the major ones, the major leagues, biggest ones ever. So this half is more the popular side, really, to be honest. These are the more well-known shows. So let's get down to it. So in at number 13, we've got Barney. Barney, lovely, great series with the voice talent of the sadly late Tim Whitnell-Taylor, of course. Harry Enfield, of course, as well. So again, just Tim Brooke Taylor, excuse me. Tim Whitnell-Taylor, no, that's the other voice actor, excuse me. Tim Brooke Taylor, pardon me. Sadly lost, just this year, really, unfortunately. Harry Enfield as well. Lovely animation, a fantastic pop song as well, which was released as a single at the time. It's lovely. It's got a lot of heart to it. Great animation as well. Good design of Barney, which I do think is brilliant. Tim Brooke Taylor's voice suits Barney very well to a T. He does. Suits well, and also same with Harry Enfield as well with Roger. That perfect blend of voices. It's fabulous. The stories themselves are really good as well. Like him digging up stuff in his back garden and thinking it's treasure because he has a habit of instinct, or he goes to a seaside, or he gets like a rowdy visitor or something that tends to steal everything he has in his house, mainly food. It's just really, it's really good. It's very simple and it's got full of heart to it. That's why it deserves to be number 13. There's plenty more, but the main 12 do take the top spot from Barney though. It's still a good show though. It's number 13 for God's sakes. In number 12, we've got Rupert. So the Nirvana TV series, really good show, fantastic animation, great voice, brilliant stories as well. It spans over 5 series. It does. I've only seen episodes from the last series, the 5th series, but it's really good. I absolutely appreciate what they were doing, and just really good. Just imaginative stuff. I don't think they're actually based on the newspaper comic strips. I don't think so. Correct me if I'm wrong with that. Some of them maybe, some of them probably don't. I don't really know. Who knows? But some of them might be made up. I'm not entirely sure. Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert on the Rupert Bear history, of course, of the franchise in particular. But this particular version of the show is absolutely brilliant. Really great. I love the opening theme song as well. I think from series 2 onwards, it's better. The first one's a bit. It's a bit sort of drab in places, but it gets more action, a bit more swashbuckle towards a very English swashbuckle type sound to it from series 2 to 5, really. But I absolutely think it's brilliant. Really good stuff. So that's at number 12. In at number 11, we've got Noddy's Toyland Adventure, so the Cluster Hall version from the 90s, well, from 1992 to 2000. It's wonderful. Very good designs, very, Susan Sheridan and Jimmy Hibbert, fantastic. Voice design combo, really good stuff. Animation-wise, it's really good because you've got people like Sue Pugh. I know because Paul Berry was involved as well. I know Brian Little as well, who directed all the first 3 seasons, and Chris Taylor directed the 4th one. You have some familiar faces as well, because you still have Rick Kent and Jeff Spain as well. The major set designers as well. You still got all the regulars, editors, cameramen as well. So it's like it's the next thing they're going to do. So fair enough. I've only seen the very first series, really, maybe an episode of series 3, to my knowledge, and it's really good, lovely, fantastic, look brilliant. I think some sort of like, why is it down below? I think because it does have like this sort of like the life lessons also. There's people just pick on Noddy and his accusing for stuff, really. That's off. It sort of gets out of hand, so like it gets repeated many times as well. But there's some really good episodes in there, fabulous ones. Some outright interesting ones as well when you come to think of it. But it's wonderful, really good stuff. In number 10, Pingu. So Pingu is the infamous claymation show. Everyone knows Pingu. Everyone still does. Still relevant, even though it has some internet stuff about it. Looking back on it now, you know, in terms of like its popularity now and everything else, and also Japan have done their own version of it, and it's like, I don't know. I've never seen that version, but the original one, really good stuff. Can be really absurd in places as well, like dark, weird, and a bit creepy and stuff like that in terms of animation techniques, and also how Pingu does as well, how he's animated as well. It's quite it's quite a bit creepy in places as well sometimes. If you look back on it, it is like he's flexible and stuff like that, and there's some weird close-ups as well. I think in the pirate episode Hell Pingu, that's sort of what the case really, when he's got a big fat face and his eyes goes around. Ugh. That is still creepy when it's popped to a close-up of it. It's like, God. But it's wonderful again, but it deals with sort of like the inner child, of course, you know. Maybe sometimes maybe how children really act sometimes in real life, that sort of thing, but not to the extent of Pingu, really, not to the extent of his character. Anyway, it's like, just there really. But it's a wonderful show, really good. In at number 9, Bob the Builder. Bob the Builder. So this came out at a time when I was young, late 90s. You know, we had Teletubbies in 97. And a year later, we got Bob the Builder, and you know the whole memorabilia thing, of course, is blue. Obviously, later we had Tweenies as well, which had a very strong cinema vibe as well. You know, them 3 shows in particular sort of like give Britain a very different identity in places. You know, in terms of toys, because people around the world really love them. Of course, you know, for the hit singles, the toys, everything else. You know, Bob the Builder is the same. I think Bob the Builder is more better in terms of its, you know, toy-wise, into its toy line, which is phenomenal, which is good. I used to own and toys back in the day. The hit single Can We Fix It, and also the version of Mambo 5 as well, which is brilliant. Neil Morrissey is the main highlight, of course, obviously famed for other stuff like Men Behaving Badly, a few Boone as well, and a few TV film appearances as well. I think in The Bounty is one that springs to mind. Yes, it's good, you know, has some good music as well. You know, it just works lovely, it does, you know. It's very colourful and very bright, and also just very has, it sticks to its vibe very much of like what you expect from a TV show, a British TV show in a way. But it's just wonderful. And yeah, so that's number 9. So, number 8, this is controversial. This is a controversial pick, this is. People probably think, you know, this still ranks extremely high, I think, but I probably think, you know, I think there's better shows, but this ranks a bit better. This ranks a little bit lower than the other ones, but I'll get around to my point. So, in at number 8, Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. Let me rephrase that. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. I made myself clear about that. Number 8. It's really, you know, phenomenal show, worldwide success, of course. Why is it down below, like not in the top 5 or anything? I like a good portion of it, really, in terms of its series. I prefer the first 5 series, really, from 84 to 98. That's the golden era. That's that sort of golden age that everyone looks at, and people my age in the 90s, also probably back then in the 80s as well, think that's the definitive period of the show. Some people probably think 6 and 7. I mean, people lump 1 to 7 as a classic era. Well, I don't actually. I think because 6 and 7 is quite. I can't really. To be honest, I've sort of gone. I'm mixed feelings about 6 and 7 these days, because obviously I didn't remember seeing it back in the day, of course. But looking, you know, if you look back on it, it doesn't have this. You know, there's too much morals in it. Not enough bite to it. You know, in terms of the adaptations, but also the new ones that came in Series 5 as well. They have some meat to them, really. I mean, some cases you probably think, well, 6 and 7 do have some meat to it as well. I sort of don't. I feel like they're trying the fat of the meat. It doesn't sit right, really. And obviously, then since then it's just gone down in a downward spiral. Then had a spike up, and people say that the second wave of a golden age sort of came, then it sort of dipped down again. You know, my only sort of fond memories of it are from series 1 to 5, really. And that's the thing, really. I mean, people now consider 1 to 5 as a definitive period. People don't lump that along with 6 and 7 as this sort of classic era. just because it's like has the same format and everything else, it means, you know, it has a different type of feel to it. Different people, like different producers and different writers are brought on it. I just don't think it's, you know, that it's really good because, you know, I've only liked it for the first 5 series really, and also that movie, and also the Magic Railroad as well came out. Oh, hate to mention that one again. Enough of that. But I think I found, but I don't think that's all put me off, like putting in the top 5 or anything else, like make it high. Even though I've watched it for many years, it's one of the first shows I watched as a child, for a very young child. It's one of my, you know, this is always your first show when you're watching it. For many people, is that it's too popular. I find that character I find the show very much just too all over the place. It's worldwide, mainstream, and it's just all over the place, completely all over the place. You know, just marketing, everything else, people following the members, and it's too overbearing really to my taste and to the way I look at it now. It's just a corporate thing really now. It's like you have to slap everything on. It's about merchandise. It's about the cash really. That sort of thing these days. You know, rather than, you know, a decent, good, you know, series. I think obviously that was a thing back in the day as well, my time as well. But what came out on television screens, of course, in the home video department, was some really good stuff that you used to rewatch over again and fond memories of. I rest my case. So that's number 8, Thomas Sanchez and Friends. Say no more. In number 7, Rosie and Jim. I find Rosie and Jim more interesting than Tots TV. I think because of like he has a different style to each other really. I think you have the more educational type style of John Cunliffe's era, which is fabulous, really good. I like John Cunliffe, of course. I think you have a more playful, I would say, playful honesty in Pat Hutchins' era as well, which is again I love as well. And then you have the comedic silly stuff, like the very sort of bumbling comedic slapstick era of Neil Brewer, who I don't mind Neil Brewer. He's a good singer actually, because I've been check out what we've been doing, of course. And he was in a band called Druid. If you want to look that stuff out, he was the bass player, along with the composer. I forgot his name, Shard. Well, his last name Shard, I think. Who composed the music for for the Ragnar production, the themes. They were in a band together along with Gary Newman's drummer. Cedric Sharpley. Excuse me if I pronounced that name wrong. But it's wonderful. There's a lot of interesting stuff with the show itself. I really do appreciate Rosie and Jim for what it's doing. John Cunliffe, I think I look back on his era. It's really one of the best eras of the show, even though I've only owned a few, maybe a couple of his VHSs, as I mentioned before. Pat Hutchins, I absolutely love, because I think that's the first Rosie and Jim era I actually watched. Neil Brewer, there was some good stuff in there, some good episodes which I've obviously obtained onto compilations, of course. Some of the early stuff is really good. I do think sometimes it's very cartoonish and, you know, to more bumbling nature. It just depends really how you put that, but he did put a lot of effort to as well, doing a stage showing and doing 4 seasons, so I credit the man for doing that, and I really do appreciate that, of course. So Rosie and Jim is at number 7 for those particular reasons. I think more so with the narrow toners really. I just have fun memories of Rosie and Jim it's more, I feel like it's more interesting really, and it has a more strong educational thing to it about totally different things, of course, like stuff you never really see, like dredging is interesting, how glass is made, that sort of thing. You know, so it sort of works in that sort of way. So that's at number 7. In at number 6, we've got Brooke. What more can we say about Brooke? A fantastic live action series from the 90s, 91, and then 94. Wonderful narration by Toby Wilcox, of course, great music as well. I'd probably say the first series has the better title music, of course, in terms of its crashing down, very sort of I don't know what you call it, a very sort of out there sort of music, very sort of cartoony, very sort of cartoon sounds, if you know what I mean, which is quite rampant as well, really good. And series 2 has some more of an 80s feel about it, like a slap bass type thing, really, sort of very keyboardy, synthy type style to it, which is good, you know. But it's like the sophomore theme tune, of course, like the sophomore series, if you know what I mean. Really good stuff. The stories themselves are really fantastic, of course. In more so with series 2, because it does involve the occasional robber appearing up again like as a recurring thing. You know, of course, like if you think of Big Town Base, you think of the Big Chase as well, all that sort of stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, at least they did it variously, maybe a couple of times really. So that's pretty good. Other times it's just from helping out the locals really much, or having their fun really. You know, it's obviously the thing, of course, Series 1 as well. Just really good stuff. Love the sort of use of Birmingham as well. You know, very sort of good locations, which is fantastic. You know, I've never been to Birmingham. I think I've actually been over Moorway late last year. So, but it was worth something. It was worth seeing Birmingham for the first time. But it's not the actual city itself. But you know, the show itself is just really good, very nostalgic. Everyone loves Brum, everyone knows it, you know. I think everyone seems to more respect it more now, I think, these days, when you reach your 20s, of course. You know, there's always a fondness to it. There is, you know, with just the character itself and just the adventures he's been having, really. And it just works lovely, it does. So, we've reached the top 5 now. So this top 5 is going to be interesting for people. If you've been watching my videos, of course, from Capital Nostalgia and Cassette versions, you probably know what's left in this one. Now, if you've been following me for a good number of years, you probably know what else is there to come, what else is left, really. So let's do this. So there might be an interesting order. So let's do this. So in at number 5, we've got Four Ways Farm. Really good show, very underrated, very sort of like a lost gem, really. Down to its animation, it's what do you call it? It's subjects, really. Like its subject is to do with science, and it's just wonderful. Really, it's on the farmyard, so it's relatable for people who basically like animals and stuff. It's really wonderful. You got Martin Jarvis doing all the voices, which is phenomenal. Which is again pretty good, decent. You know, always brings a good, decent accent to which character, of course. This fits lovely. It does. You know, this title theme, wonderful. And the episodes themselves are really good, because you have the instant classics. You've got Drop the Hard Stuff, which is probably one of the best, sort of memorable episodes of all time. Same with Birth and Death. Animal Magnetism is another one. You know, you think of sunflowers. You think of other stuff like maybe Sickness and Health is probably another one you can probably go back to. Or I always think of something like Snow Problem. That's a really good one. What's the other one? Material Differences is one I always fondly remember as well. And yes, again, it's really good. It's a shame that it's sort of been put on the carpet after many years, probably since after, I can roughly say like 98 really, and nothing's really ever come up since really, apart from the DVD you can get on the the Ford Learning website, which is just ridiculously expensive just for one DVD of that. It's like, for God's sakes, you know, it's like, you can't really just burst that freaking bank really for just that one DVD. Imagine some people go for it, take a chance, but I think it should do with a good a remaster, like a good series, you know, like a remastered version on DVD. Channel 4 should really do that, you know, rather than just bankability really. Although they could probably just put it on like 4OD or something, like if times change, like they did with the recent. The very early series of Bob the Builder, and also the original Brum as well. I think original Fireman Sam as well, just recently on BBC iPlayer, which I've heard about the news just a couple of days ago actually. So it's like, there could be potential. There could be potential to put it on like online what do you call it? Catch up TV. That's it. You know, just something like that really. Just like a box set or something that just exclusive, you know, for 4OD really. That could be potential. We just don't know yet. But it's just wonderful. I always fondly remember it, and it just works lovely. It does. In at number 4, we've got Tugs. Now, it's strange to have put Tugs before Thomas Nash and Friends, but there is a good reason why. I think this is in the top 5. Down to it's just to be one series, and surprisingly, he didn't have a second series in total, you know, because of production issues in it. Well, due with bankruptcy played a huge part in it. Wonderful, brilliant direction, the voice cast, the episodes themselves, every single episode from front to back, from Sunshine to Big Freeze, is absolutely phenomenal. There's no dud in this episode. Some people probably might disagree in some places, but in my opinion, this is a strong set of stories, you know, very strong, you know. It's like, they really pick some really good stories to handle. It just works lovely, it does, you know. an interesting fact as well, because in terms, I also grew up on a good mixture of them, you know, stuff like Munitions and Regatta, which are the extended versions that added a few more 5 more minutes of material to it, which is interesting. So it's like an uncut version, that is, rather than the 15-minute version, which is I've never really seen, unfortunately, because I was never around in the 80s, unfortunately. But other stuff like, you know, Trapped, High Winds, High Tide is another good one, Warrior, you know, and the finale, Big Freeze, you know, really standout ones, really standout episodes to me, really. The other ones as well, like, you know, you have the ones that I saw got later on, stuff like Sunshine, Jinxed, you know, Upriver, all them type of ones. They're still fantastic. There's always something about it, even though you probably remember the ones you definitely remember from back in the 90s, back in the late 90s. You know, it's really just, as a whole, it's just glorious. It's a glorious masterpiece done by Mitten and Cardona. It's wonderfully done by their team. Great music by Campbell and O'Donnell as well, which really suits it lovely, you know. Saying that 1920s era, it's just done wonderfully. A shame it just lasted for 13 episodes. It had potential. It still does have potential, of course, with the fan base and it feels a cult following. People actually found the original models and restored them, put them on exhibition, that sort of thing. You know, there is still a strong following for the show. You know, even if you haven't seen it on VHS, it's definitely worth a watch. Definitely, you know, even for people who probably have only seen Thomas and Friends, this is probably a next step to go on to. It's a wonderful spin-off, absolutely fantastic. I say no more. So that's my number 4. God, I rhymed then, my goodness. Right, so these last 3 are sort of interchange. They could be interchangeable, they can, but I sort of stick to these ones, and it's probably worth interestingly. So, in at number 3, Fireman Sam, the original Bumper Films TV show, which is fabulous, wonderfully animated. John Alston, fantastic, really good narrator. He does the voice as well. I can only, you know, if you know. He, to me, that, you know, if you look at John Alston and other stuff, of course, you know, like in other TV shows and also working with his wife and stuff. What's her name? Pauline Collins, her name. You know, I just, you know, John Alston, you just think of Fireman Sam, really, as the voice, the narrator, really. Wonderful music as well. I forgot who the composers as well, but they actually did compose a film that I remember seeing. It's actually a remake. It calls them called Breeders from the 90s, you know. Probably just, you know, it's like some weird British film for Anna Man, even though it's mainly set in Boston or something in America. Probably do a review of that at some point, really. But I just thought I'd bring that in, of course, you know. I'm sure I'll put it on the Facebook page, really, just to give a little tidbit of information, a little trivia there. Now it's on here. But it's a wonderful series. I fondly remember, you know, the first 3 series, which are really good. I mean, series 3 is probably my favourite out of the bunch, really. I think my least favourite is going to be series 4, though. Not to say series 4 is a bad series. It's a fantastic series. But the problem is, when I was growing up, I never seen anything in series 4, so I don't have a nostalgic attachment to it, unfortunately. But those 8 episodes, of course, are really good. You know, very strongly well remembered, of course. Series 3 is fondly remembered in my case because of all the fantastic stuff on there. You know, spoiler bother, it's my absolute favourite Fireman Sam episode ever. Really, it always is. It always sticks by there. You know, stuff like Lost in the Fog as well. Really good stuff. You know, Norman's Pitfall is absolutely fantastic. You know, series 2's got some great stuff as well, like The Great Inventor, Thief and Pontypandy. You know, you think of Chemistry Set, you do. You think of The Wishing Well as well. You know, and the extended special of Snow Business. Great stuff. I mean, that is wonderfully. You know, series 1 as well has some good stuff. My only little gripe of it, though, with series 1 is, you know, Alton's narration, especially in the very first episode, in the kite episode. You know, some of his narration is, and his voices sort of are not gelling as well. He's finding his feet, especially with Bella Lasagna's first voice. You can hear it, like, in its early stages. It's like, it can be cringeworthy if you look back on it. If you do a mix match compilation, and you have this, like, in maybe the 4th or 5th episode on a DVD or VHS, whatever, the episode kite, it can be a bit distracting, really, in my opinion. But that's really my only little tiny gripe with series 1, really. But everything else is just like, it's there. Really good stuff. Phenomenal. In at number 2, The Wind in the Willows. Courtesy of Richard Haynes for doing this. For actually also making me think about this TV show I've now seen for years. really. So courtesy for him to actually bring it, bring my attention back to the show, really. It's phenomenal. What can we say about The Wind in the Willows, really? Spot on animation, great direction, voice cast is fantastic. The theme song by Ralph Mattel is priceless, wonderful. And the episodes themselves, I think from the original 4 series, it's really interesting. Very, very, very heartfelt stories, crazy, humorous stories involving toads, crazes really. We also got these sort of darker edge stories, especially like in the first series. There's always a little dark edge included in the stories, like Weasel's Trap. They could probably be. Let me think of another one. What else is? Weasel's Trap is one really that springs heavily to mind in that case. Also based on the chapters as well. Further Adventures of Toad, Wayfare is all, Piper Gates of Dawn, all them stuff. Again, it's just really there's something to it, and I think recently because Richard Haynes obviously had done the series, he did like sort of commentary on every single episode of the show really. All 5 seasons and the 2 specials. It really opened the doors to think, actually this is a masterpiece. This is another masterpiece done by Cosgrove Hall. In terms of the characters, in terms of everything else. I mean, it's all made me look back on it and think, actually, yes, that is actually one of the best ones because it's got sophistication. It's got, it's timeless. It's got funny moments, memorable dialogue, memorable characters. It all fits nicely. It does. It works wonderfully. And the people involved with Cosgrove Hall have done a really interesting job, really, of doing this. Adapting the original book and continue it for another for 5 seasons, really, just to expand the universe, expand the horizon, expand the storytelling of the characters that we've grown to love back in the original 1908 novel by Kenneth Graham. It really works. It's wonderful. It's timeless now. I think it's regarded as one of the best TV shows ever because it's appeared in countdowns. And also it's in there. At a certain point, maybe about in the 60 mark, roughly around that era, around that bit really. So at least it gets a mention. At least it's still represented. But still, it's all people. Well, it's a family show, really, to be honest, because it's more tuned to kids and adults alike, even though it was lumped into the preschool slot. If you look at the video collection and Lisa VCI were doing, really, just slot it in there, really. I think because, I don't know, maybe because it's Ray U or something like that, it's like, it's aimed at children, really, that sort of thing. But there we go. I mean, that's a common criticism these days, of course. That's sort of like the main point, really. To think that it's not really a preschool show. It never really was. Well, never is it really. It's more geared for a family, really. It's like you think of Doctor Who. That's a family show, but it's not geared. Really, it's not geared for kids, really, because it has to cater for both parties, both majorities, really, in that sense. But it's wonderful. I finally remember it. Because the main things I've talked about are obviously already, and it's something. And it introduced me to the wonderful Sir David Jason, Pierre Salas, Sir Michael Horden, Richard Pearson, Ian Carmichael, all those great voice actors. That was my introduction to their work, really, thanks to The Wind in the Willows. And it makes the number 2 spot. But for number 1, quite an obvious one in some regards, but for me, I think it's like heritage, really, in a way. It's like it's got this has baggage to it. This does, and I'll explain. So number 1 is Postman Pat. Now, I think for like a heritage type thing, or like legacy type thing, or whatever, I think because I was born in the hometown which Postman Pat was conceived, because John Cunliffe, originally from Kentville, obviously conceived it in the late 70s in 1978, and based around a village called Longsdeddle, also based on a post office which actually used to be a post office. It closed down in the early 2000s, that did, and just became a house, really. That was the main inspiration. The plaque is still there. It is. Obviously, I showcased it on the Bumper Films Facebook page, of course, just for this 39th celebration this year. And it's like, it really just There's something about it. When I look back on it, it's like Postman Pat is something, because it's like a mascot for your hometown, really. Because you have, I don't really know what town mascots really have, really. I mean, but he's like a major part in Kendal, really. One of the major factors in that town, that parish market town. We have mint cake. Well, that's one main thing. That's one thing that's still being sold today for many years, hundreds of years. Obviously, we've got Postman Pat. We have got just some other things, really, to be honest. I'm not entirely sure what thing. Well, I don't know, really. I think because we're linked to Germany. I think we are. We have a similar thing in Germany. I don't know. A similar market down in Germany, so that's about close I can get, really. But I think those two things. I think that main thing with Postman Pat is that it really, when people like to look back on it, they want to know the history of how it's created, and actually they find out there is a place that is actually sort of based on, some elements are based on. Greendale's based on a village hid in the valley, of course, and also a post office which is down a house, of course, was the basis for Mrs. Goggins' own post office. And some people will probably look at that and think it's in the Lake District. I've always wanted to go to the Lake District. So far, I can go there and probably experience this sort of thing, and it just works. It's probably something. It's probably for people who are more interested in history, the show itself, and obviously who have loved it since from their very early age, really. Probably the same for me, because I do want one video of it, like a proper video, but it's like a 2D drawn animation one. Whereas we always think of the stop motion Ivor Wood show. Series 1 and Series 2 are really fantastic in their own right. Great stories, really good dialogue. I mean, Series 2's got a bit more of interest and weirdness to it in terms of certain stories, really. That's all working. It's a bit more ambitious in a way. Not as ambitious as what Cosgrove Hall have done, really. As they sort of got away and it's went in his own direction. I probably think from the Cosgrove Hall era of Postman Pat, I probably tune out from there. I've only ever seen the first two specials they actually ever released, and that was it, really. I think by then I just stopped, really. But Postman Pat itself, the only reason why I fondly remember this show, but also why it's at number one, is because it's a character that means well, also to the where I live, where I was born, and everything else. Postman Pat is sort of like, that sort of what do you call it, like a legend in a type of way, because he's famous for coming from there. They did the premiere for the Postman Pat movie at the Brewery Arts Centre, the local cinema, which is interesting for its opening premiere. Also, John Conniff was there as well. There was actually pictures to prove it, a few bit of footage as well. I think to do with reports of John Conniff passing away 3 years ago. But it really works to me. It's a good-natured TV show. Great characters. It has a good atmosphere. It has a feel-good thing about it, and it's wonderful. Both Series 1 and Series 2, again, phenomenal. Those are the ones that people tend to go back to. A lot of people do, actually, to be honest. And it's timeless. It's very timeless. This show, very timeless. It's wonderful, and that's why I picked it number one. Also, I got a snow globe as well, which I've shown a couple of times, maybe twice actually. I think on a video and also a Facebook page as well to celebrate the 39th anniversary, which are very hard to find these days. I was looking, I was interested. I wonder if you can see the one online. There was one picture that actually featured, same snow globe, but inside, instead of Mrs. Goggins, it was George Lancaster. Believe it or not. It's like, oh, really? So there's different variations. But I've got the one with Mrs. Goggins inside, really. So, but it's a wonderful thing. I think it came out in 1999. That's not I've had it for years. It's like a family heirloom thing or something. It's been part of the furniture of the house of my home for many years. So that's number one, Postman Pat.
The end.